when having a will?
It's the question that comes up so often because people either are themselves drawn into a big fight, or they know someone who's been drawn into a big fight, and sometimes the outcome is not the same as the will, and people can become very demoralised, particularly because it does cost a bit of money to do a carefully prepared will, and it's very natural for people to wonder whether there's a point to it. I mean, obviously there have been some very dramatic situations, some horrible disputes and some outcomes that have been very unfortunate. But it's important to remember that these are not the majority of cases. The majority of cases are, so far as I'm aware, that most wills do go through more or less as the person intended in their will, if those wills have been prepared properly and work properly. So that's the big caveat there, is some wills are not thought through properly, or they make sense in the mind of the person who wrote them, particularly if they're a self-made will, but they don't integrate with the reality of circumstances and the reality of all the different laws that impact, and so those wills can be very clunky and expensive and require problem solving, etc. But if you have a well thought through will that's been prepared with some good advice and professionally drafted, there's every chance that it will actually be operative and the person's wishes will actually come into effect. So that is one reason to start with a will. Another reason is, even if there is a claim on the estate or something goes a bit wrong, you have still appointed in your will, if you've done one, your chosen person to be the executor. And that's a very fundamental thing, because that person will be the starting point for dealing with whatever problems may come along. And if you don't have a will, you don't know who that person will be. It could be someone who you haven't intended would ever be the person who would wind up your life for you after you have passed. So appointing an executor, and maybe more than one executor, maybe some alternative choices if your first choice is not able to act for some reason, that in itself is of value, even if the rest of the will is affected in some way. Another reason is, in the world of contesting wills, which is not what it's officially called, but what people often refer to colloquially as when someone tries to claim more from the estate, in Queensland at least, we have limited categories of people who are able to bring a claim, whereas if you have someone who is not within those categories who you would really like to benefit in your will, say a family member who is outside the categories, or a friend, or a organisation like a charity or a church, or someone who you would really like to give some of your estate to, it's important to have a will, because those people will be entitled to be part of the process if a challenge does come in from left field. If they're not named in your will at all, then they have no voice and no seat at the table. So, as demoralising as it is to hear bad stories, and there are definitely bad stories, just remember that for every bad story there is more than one good story, and that if you do have definite wishes about people who you would like to help, or organisations that you would like to help, and if you do have definite views about who you would like to be your executor, those two things alone are a good reason to do a proper will. Even if you do know that there is someone lurking who you think is probably going to try and bring a claim, it doesn't mean they will succeed, and it doesn't mean that they're going to get everything. So consider investing in a good will. Even if you can't tell the future, it is still your way of having on the table, in a way that will be considered by all the lawyers and judges who are involved in any dispute, something that states what you want.